Well, welcome to the Viking Age podcast. It's the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for FanSided and ZoneCoverage.com. We do this right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel every Tuesday and Friday morning. We're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. Adam Patrick, my normal co-host, is out today. He is playing Mr. Mom, so it is a solo show with me, but we got a lot to talk about because JJ McCarthy is Christian Ponder on the Vikings quarterback scale this week. The Max Browsmer psychos are out of control once again, and Kevin O'Connell's culture is being tested like never before. But let's not bury the lead. We're going to dive right into it. JJ McCarthy hit rock bottom against the Chicago Bears. It was a 19-17 victory by the Bears at US Bank Stadium on Sunday. But of course, the biggest storyline, as will be the rest of the season, is the play of quarterback JJ McCarthy. He completed 16 of 32 passes, 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And I know those stats are bad. Sometimes you have a box score like JJ McCarthy's first start, where he throws for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, runs for another. And we accuse some people of being like, you didn't even watch the game. You just read the box score or whatever. It wasn't as bad as the box score suggests. The stats don't do this box score justice. And I do not mean that as a compliment this time. There were sailed passes. There was terrible footwork. He was booed off the field at one point. And I mean, Kevin O'Connell, to his credit, helped him out by running the ball 22 times for 115 yards. And it still didn't matter because JJ McCarthy couldn't make open throws. He couldn't find big plays downfield. It was a lot of the same stuff. And I know everybody is panicking. There's a lot of stuff out there about, the Vikings need to bench JJ McCarthy and put in Max Brosmer. We'll get to that in just a minute. But I think there's also a lot of panic in terms of, hey, it's not supposed to look this bad, right? Like we're talking about ups and downs, and maybe it's like an off game, like the first 2 games that McCarthy has had on this run. Because I don't know, his first 2 starts, they are data points, but they're also kind of hard to assess because McCarthy was playing with Justin Jefferson, who was coming off that hamstring injury in the preseason. He didn't have Jordan Addison. Christian Darrisaw wasn't at left tackle. There were a lot of goofy things in that game. And to his credit, McCarthy found a way to win. Hell, he almost found a way to win this game, which when you look at that, that's a very positive thing. But the one thing that concerns about me, and I'm not benching him, I'm not, calling him a bust or anything like that. It is that things aren't stacking together for him right now. If we look at the 3 starts after he came back from the ankle injury, it seems like he's gotten worse with each start. Starting Detroit wasn't perfect. Um, he made some throws early, got the Vikings a big lead. They were able to play from ahead, and McCarthy made the right play at the right time, and the Vikings wound up putting in Detroit. It was an impressive win. Against Baltimore, he made some of those throws that were flashes, but there were too many times where he sailed a pass or it wasn't catchable or just bad footwork. Like that's been the key thing that everybody's been obsessing over, and rightfully so, because even when you look at this tape, the one thing that everybody is pointing out is that I think it's his left leg. If it's right leg, you have to. I didn't play football. So like I don't think about those things. Yeah, right. So if I'm right-handed, right would go first, and that would be your plant leg. And then yeah, whatever leg it is. I'm sitting in a gaming chair. You think I know how to but you know, his legs swinging out. He's not getting the velocity he needs on some of these passes. Now, the velocity is there on a lot of them because they're too hot to handle. And it's like the control of a minor league pitcher, like the one, maybe the Twins make a trade and they're like a player to be named later. And like, yeah, he throws 104, but people in the front row might die if he throws a pit. It's that sort of thing with JJ McCarthy right now. And there's the high leg kick. There's that footwork that everybody's going off over. The hard passes all the time. Just throwing with his upper body, kind of leading to some of those wild throws. And there's also some poor decisions because he is trusting his arm too much. It's almost like, all these people who said, "Oh, he doesn't have any arm strength." Like he kind of went in there like, I'll show you, but it came at the expense of his accuracy. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. But when I look at JJ McCarthy, this is my number one takeaway. We need to give him the final 7 games to figure out what he is. And we might not even have the answer at the end of those 7 games. But if he shows progress and starts stacking things together, we can have the conversation of, okay, bring him into 2026. Maybe you add a veteran, something better than, I don't know, Sam Howell or Carson Wentz to compete with him or something along those lines, because Sunday was not good enough. But you still see flashes. Like, I think I love his mentality. That's what I like most of all. He tackles things head on. There's no excuses really with him. In my opinion, I might be wrong. I know a lot of people mock the 9 thing. I don't love it or hate it. Like it always makes me laugh when people like jump online like, "Yo, how's 9 doing today?" It's like, it doesn't fucking matter, dude. Like, if you're a football player and you're going to go slam your head into a brick wall for 60 minutes, yeah, you might need an alter ego to get yourself fired up. I don't know. But I also think too, like this is kind of the analogy I made at the beginning of the season with McCarthy. And if you go back in time, I talked a big game about McCarthy, how he's going to hit the Kirk Cousins benchmarks, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, whatever. I was wrong. I will fully admit that. And this was not a quarterback that was ready to play in 2025. I think we have the answer to that now, in hindsight, of course. But it's almost like you buy a game on PS5, right? Or Xbox, whatever you play. And when you buy it, you have to download the game and it says, "Oh, it's ready to play." So you hop on, you fire it up, but the whole game's not there yet. So you get this demo mode of like, if it's NBA 2K, it's who was in the finals last year? Indiana and Oklahoma City, and you can only play that game, right? That is what I feel like JJ McCarthy is right now, where a lot of the framework was downloaded last year, but now we're getting like the actual nudge, like he's getting franchise mode or whatever. Like he's learning how to play. And I know a lot of people too are like sitting out there. I mean, Kevin O'Connell's doing it too. He's saying, "Hey, we want to go 1-0 every week." That should be their goal, 100%. But if you're still holding out hope and you want to be in the hunt or whatever, I have some bad news for you. Season's over. They are not making the playoffs unless, JJ McCarthy turns into Tom Brady overnight in the Tom Brady Christian Ponder spectrum that we've established here as Vikings fans. But you have a 2% chance to make the playoffs after yesterday, according to the Athletics playoff predictor. As I grab a sip of water here. I like these solo shows, by the way. Excuse me. I like these solo shows, by the way. They're kind of fun, but also there are times where I'm like, "Oh, I got a little something I need to clear the throat so I don't sound like a frog here the rest of the show." But we should be good. Maybe another water break or two. I don't know. Maybe Adam even cuts this part out. I don't know. But 2% chance to make the playoffs after Sunday's loss. So unless you think things are drastically going to turn around, this is 100% on JJ McCarthy. And I will entertain the Max Brosmer psychos that are out there, because, and psycho is a bad word, Brosmer bros. I've used that before. The Max Brosmer bros who believe that he is head and shoulders above McCarthy. They buy into that preseason fourth quarter. He's not from Minnesota, but he played for Minnesota. So like that means something in this landscape, all of those little things. And let's just say that Max Brosmer is what people think he is. Like this weird pocket of Vikings fans who are just sold on him after a couple of preseason games. So let's say Max Brosmer is Brock Purdy, Kurt Warner, whatever example you want to use. If Max Brosmer goes out there and plays like JJ McCarthy these games, I think we're going to be a little bit mad that they didn't just write out McCarthy. And if Brosmer is as good as we say he is, wouldn't it make sense for him to iron out his kinks? Because he's not a finished product either. If he was, he would have been going in the first round with as much as they talk about his processing speed and everything else. I mean, NFL teams are weird. Graham Mertz got drafted by the Houston Texans in the 6th round. I think Max Brosmer is a better quarterback than Graham Mertz. But, wouldn't it make sense to say, okay, we got this top 10 pick. We're going to ride him out. But you're going to work on your kinks. You're going to work on all the stuff. You're going to do what JJ McCarthy basically did last year with the added bonus of practicing. Now, he's not going to get a lot of the reps. He's a backup quarterback, so he's probably getting decent amount of reps right now. But if Brosmer goes in, learns all this stuff, goes into the offseason with no penalty, by the way. I think that's another thing that's not discussed with McCarthy. When he makes a mistake, there is a massive penalty because it's out in front of everybody. With Max Brosmer makes a mistake in practice, it's just some teammates like, all right, next time, kid, right? There is an added benefit, and McCarthy was supposed to get that last year, which is not an excuse for McCarthy. I'm just saying they're being raised in two different ways, which makes this interesting, right? So you could go through the backup quarterback thing again if McCarthy is okay, and you might want to do that anyway. Or you could have Brosmer learn in this environment where his mistakes don't really have consequences, and you could go with a cheap backup quarterback and a plan B in case McCarthy goes out there next year and you're saying, "Uh-oh, this kid doesn't have it," right? So, I mean, some Gopher fans will be like, "Well, put him in. This is your best chance to win." Again, the season is over. This team is not good. They are not going to the playoffs. Do not think in a lens of how do we make the playoffs? It is how do we develop a quarterback? It sucks, but it's the truth right now. And I know some fans are going to be like, well, if Brosner's better, why don't you put him in? That's the privilege you get as a top 10 pick in this league. There are some top 10 picks that still get jobs. Zach Wilson's still employed. I'm trying to think of other examples of Sam Darnold hung around forever until he went to the Vikings. Then everybody was like, why are you signing Sam Darnold? And he was awesome. And now people complain about him, being a good quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. Not yesterday, but just overall. I mean, Sam Darnold's been pretty good for the Seahawks. I mean, that's just kind of how things work. Top 10 pick against UDFA, your margin of error is a lot thinner. And Brosmer even just making the team, that's a huge opportunity, and he's soaking it all in. So I don't know. You could call me crazy after yesterday. I don't really care. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's how life goes in the NFL sometimes. And maybe Max Brosmer comes in and he's this great quarterback. But I feel like McCarthy's biggest issues, the footwork, the 100 miles an hour every pass, those poor decisions, those are going to get ironed out with time. And the only way that he's really going to learn is by getting him out there, letting him chuck it around. And by the way, too, if the Vikings, if they wind up winning one more game the rest of the year and they're a 5-win team, all right, let's add a premium draft pick to a team that doesn't have a lot of young talent right now because they've screwed up the draft so much that there's nothing around the quarterback. So I don't know. I look at all this, I'm frustrated. I hate being wrong too. So like when games like Sunday happen, they're hard for me to digest, but I feel like you need to let this play out for 7 more games. You go into the offseason, you evaluate the quarterback market. If something becomes available, you entertain that. And then You know, maybe that's the path for Bro. But I mean, I'm not putting him in right now unless JJ McCarthy gets hurt or something. And I don't want to cheer for injury. And if you're a Gopher fan, you shouldn't either. But if McCarthy gets hurt again, maybe we close the book and go, okay, let's see what Brosmer's got. But as of right now, I don't think benching him solves anything. You got to let him play. You got to let him make mistakes and see what happens. And the last thing I'll say about this too is I feel like, there are two things, and I might have mentioned this earlier, but I feel like there are some Viking fans that just want the quarterback to fail so they can be right. Like it just makes them feel good. It makes them, they did it with Darnold, and a bunch of people were against Sam Darnold when he got here. They jumped on board when he won, and now they're jumping online and tweeting. Paul Charchian, don't mean I'm totally calling him out by name, but I don't mean this to, as any offense to him. But he was sitting there going like, Sam Darnold's the quarterback you deserve. And now he's out there talking about how they should have kept Darnold. They should have signed him. They should have whatever. Okay, well, there's beeping sounds in the background of your tweets, man. Like, it's just kind of how it is. And it also makes me wonder too, what did the Vikings see during OTAs and preseason that made them think that McCarthy was good to go? Because like we heard it from reporters too, who reporters on the beat, they do a good job. I know that's like the fun thing now. Like we want to talk about reporters, and I don't know, maybe that's a ESPN show down the road. Like, hey, should so-and-so be benched after not asking the correct questions? Well, press conferences are harder than you think. Take it from someone who's been in a few press conferences. But those reports were nothing like, God, McCarthy's a train wreck or anything. And two, when Kevin O'Connell was asked why he calls the play that he does for McCarthy, he said he's seen it in practice from him, that he can make these throws and everything else. So now it's a matter of just transferring that over to the game. He might not be able to do it, but O'Connell sees a framework and he goes, let's keep calling it. Let's keep doing it. And again, he probably knows too in the back of his mind. I know he wants to go 1-0 every week, as he loves to say. He also knows that this season is probably toast, as unfortunate as it is. So that is your weekly JJ McCarthy update. I'm not benching him. I'm not putting in Max Brosmer yet. I'm not doing any of those things. I just want to see him play, man. So that's where I'm at. And we'll see what happens Sunday against the Packers and the rest of the schedule here, because it's going to be very important to determine what happens with JJ McCarthy's future and the Vikings' future at quarterback. So before we get into my second point here, I want to tell you about our folks at Underdog, because football season is in full swing and Underdog is the best place to get in on the action. Excuse me. Playing Underdog is easy. You just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower in stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash, and you could play it with as little as $1. I've been playing Underdog for years. I'll tell you just how easy it is. Every Sunday, I wake up, pour some coffee, log on to Underdog, and I make some entries right on the app. No Vikings ones are up for Sunday's game against the Green Bay Packers yet, but I've been doing touchdown entries. So when they do come up, I will take Justin Jefferson higher 0.5 rushing or receiving TDs. It's probably got a good multiplier because it has not happened much this year. And then the other thing I like to do is, you don't have to do a full game. You could do a first half Underdog entry if you want to. So what I like doing is first half passing touchdowns. So I have to pick a Packer. If I could pick all Vikings, I would. But Jordan Love, 0.5 first half passing touchdowns. It's a low multiplier, but if you're building a big entry, it adds up. It helps you get that money at the end of the day. And another one that I like, I'll give you a bonus one here. Patrick Mahomes usually has, it's usually about 0.5 rushing yards in the first quarter, but like sometimes it might be a little higher, like 1.5. But with the way he scrambles, usually when he does decide to go, he gets a big chunk. So I love taking the higher on that, putting that as part of my entry, especially if I got one all in the same game. It's super fun. And if they're all correct, you win money just by sitting on your couch and watching football. Download the app today. Sign up with the promo code The Age, which is all one word. You see it on the screen there. You score $100 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That is promo code The Age. Underdog. Make picks. Win money. You must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offers not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. If you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Quick little water break here, and we'll get back to the action here because, unfortunately, there's more to talk about than JJ McCarthy when it comes to the bad thing about Sunday's game. And I wrote about this at zonecoverage.com. And it's that I feel like the Vikings culture is being tested because when you looked at how Sunday's game ended, it was very 2022 Vikings like. And don't say that to a Bears fan, by the way, because they're feeling a little froggy. So we posted our promo on X, which you can follow us at the Viking Age or the Viking Age on X, by the way. We post everything, all of our articles and everything right there on social media. But we posted the thumbnail for Friday's episode, and it had big letters, Bears are frauds. And the Bears fans, they did not like that. They bookmarked it. They fired away when they won. Let them have their moment. And that's basically how I feel because Vikings fans have seen how that movie ends. And I think Caleb Williams will throw it past the sticks on 4th and 8, but just let them have their fun. It's their year. They're feeling good. Who knows? Ben Johnson's a smug little prick. I don't like him very much, but you know what? If you're a Bears fan, you haven't had that success once in a while, just let him go. Let him go. Like I said, Viking season is over. We're accepting it here. I don't know. Maybe we get Adam on the show on Thursday and he's like, we're leading the charge. And I'll go, okay, brother. Yeah. I mean, just Bears fans, congratulations on your win. Hope you go further than the 2022 Vikings did. But just the way it ended, though, with the Bears winning on a walk-off field goal. They're celebrating on the field. Ben Johnson, he's throwing out game balls everywhere. You know, the vibes are through the roof, whatever. And like I said, they look like the 22 Vikings. But when you go over to the Vikings sideline, I don't think it's as bad as Matt Eberflus's sideline about a year ago with the Bears. But late Mike Zimmer tenure, post-extension, I'd hear that. There's just a lot of, I don't even know how to explain it. But at the crux of this is that the Vikings were the bad example of playing complementary football on Sunday. And for the most part, I thought the defense did their job. If you hold a team to 19 points, you should be able to win the game if your offense is good. But they were not. JJ McCarthy had a rough day. The running game looked really good. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason had, I think it was 47 yards and a touchdown on 6 carries. Yes, please. Why is he not getting the ball more? Just a lot of weird things still with the Vikings play calling, but the Vikings receivers dropped 6 passes on Sunday. Like when you talk about the infrastructure, and because that was the ideal scenario, right? JJ McCarthy sits for a year. He comes in. There's this great infrastructure with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and those are just the receivers. I mean, the offensive line, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. You bring in Donovan Jackson, who has been tremendous, by the way, as their first round pick at left guard. We got a guard, ladies and gentlemen. That's something to be excited about. And then you get a couple of free agent lemons in Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. Like all guys that have not lived up to their price tag of the $300 million they spent. Granted, some of that money probably should have been spent on Cam Bynum, but here we are. Um, you have the drops though on offense. And that kind of that's another thing McCarthy kind of had to deal with is when he did make the right decisions, sometimes the receiver just dropped it. And that's disheartening too for a young quarterback. Like, oh, I did everything right. Why aren't we getting going? As you're older and maybe you're hardened by that, it's kind of like, oh, come on, you got to catch that. But you're not getting down on yourself. Like we see Aaron Rodgers getting ready to like murder a guy anytime somebody drops a pass. But he goes, after he's done screaming at him, it's next play. Um, Outside of that, the special teams had another hold that wiped out a long return by Miles Price. Miles Price, great punt return that set up. I think they were down 16-3. So it was the first touchdown by Mason that punt return set up. But McCarthy throws the game winning touchdown to Jordan Addison. And right away, Devin Duvernay rips off a long return because Ivan Pace is out of his lane, goes right down the sideline. And on the broadcast, they show Kevin O'Connell screaming at Matt Daniels, special teams coordinator. It is kind of eerie considering 5 years ago, Mike Zimmer screamed at Marwan Malouf in Chicago on Monday Night Football. 5 years ago, I think it's a couple more days. But about 5 years later, Kevin O'Connell is giving his special teams coordinator the same death stare. And I mean, I look at the Vikings, I look at these lapses in concentration and everything else, and I'm starting to wonder if they're just showing cracks. Because, like, I'll be honest with you, coming on here was a little bit hard for me today. And sometimes I got to remind myself, be a professional, get on here, talk to the people, do your thing. People love the podcast and you've been tuning in. I think we're over 2,000 subscribers right away. So thank you if you've joined recently. And thank you if you've been a long time subscriber. We love having you guys too. But, um, Twitter doctors, online trolls, soft benching conspiracists, Max Brosmer bros. Like I'm weighed down by all of it. You got people who are out there like, should have signed Aaron Rodgers. Like, it, a lot of it is a lot. You got ex QBs turning into film gurus. Like I've had enough of it. And like on Sunday, I was like, I don't even want to watch Red Zone right now. Like I am that burned out from football at this moment. But one thing Kevin O'Connell has done during his tenure with the Vikings is that he's been able to keep outside noise out of the building. But eventually, our friend of the show, Matthew Collar, pointed this out, I think it was last week. Eventually, players run into family members who go, hey, did you see what, Chris Schad said about you on the Viking Age podcast? I hope no Viking has ever seen what I've said. I think I'm fair, but maybe not. I don't know. Did you see, what Adam Patrick said about you? That sort of thing. Like it comes down to it. And eventually when that noise is getting so much because it's not just like the, second rate podcast hosts like myself. It's national pundits who are like, they chose wrong. They should have the Diana Rossinis, right? The talking head screamy shows with Stephen A. Smith and whatever. I mean, they're probably talking about Shador Sanders now because he got in and sucked. So, all of that eventually takes a toll. And even the Vikings X account, their hype video was like a lot of noise out there. And it was all of these takes just coming in. And they said, you got to block out the noise. I don't think the Vikings are doing that right now because you look at the sideline and it's like these players expected to win a Super Bowl. And now they're probably booking their trips to Cancun. Like they probably went out for the second half and said Cancun on 3, falling down 16-3. I mean, it's very concerning for the last 7 games because McCarthy needs this infrastructure to show what he can do. And if players are checked out, players are like, screw you, man. Like there's a lot of things that they could be upset about. I mean, there are the injuries where Darisaw and O'Neal O'Neal's playing through a nasty injury right now. Darisaw came back maybe too early. Ryan Kelly was the same thing. Like you're seeing a lot of, just strife. The Carson Wentz thing with his shoulder dangling out of his socket. Like nobody on the sideline looked happy there. And we kind of chalked it up to Carson Wentz and kind of like, well, this is how teams usually look when they have Carson Wentz as their quarterback. No, I think there's something in that locker room where everybody that they volunteered to go to Europe for 10 days. Like all of those things are just crazy. So, when I see, I think it was a run in the third quarter, and I can't remember who did it. Maybe it was Swift, maybe it was Mong, and I totally butchered his name. But you know, the Bears push him about 5, 6, 7 yards. And it's just like, hey guys, we gonna play or what? Um, those are things that concern me right now. And again, if they check out, is McCarthy going to be graded on a curve for next year? How do they, evaluate that? So, and I mean, this is the other thing that Kevin O'Connell has done. The Vikings have never been a team since Kevin O'Connell took over where I've said that team quit. I think the game against the Packers in 2023 was one game where I think we came on this show and asked, but that team was so banged up by that point. They were starting Jaron Hall at quarterback. Uh, and still that team with Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles won 7 games. Like 2 years ago, you think about it, the Vikings never gave up in 2022. And you see that with this Bears team is they're just running on vibes. And eventually the vibes ran out in the playoffs, but 8 fourth quarter comebacks, the largest comeback in NFL history against the Colts. Vikings look at that and they see that as a special season. Last year, there were a couple of moments where you felt like the wheels were going to fall off in the middle of the year. Sam Darnold chucks 3 interceptions against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And next thing you know, the Vikings have 14 wins. They're 14-2, going to Ford Field with a chance for home field advantage in the NFC. Now, we don't want to talk about what happened in those 2 games after that, but Kevin O'Connell is a coach that specializes in building the vibes and using them to his advantage, momentum, if you will. And this year, every time the Vikings seem to get some kind of momentum, they're just chopped down by a special teams mistake or a drop or something there. The concentration just doesn't look like it's there. And, maybe if you talk to a player, they would argue, hey, we're concentrating. It's just not panning out. But it does feel like, and this is what happens when you lose games, the culture is just waning right now. And what does that mean for the future? Does this bleed into next year? Because a lot of the guys who are on this team are under contract for next season. So what does this mean? Like at this point, we need to start thinking about the future, 2026, maybe 2027 and beyond. Like, what does this culture that appears to be cracking right in front of us mean? Does it mean the Vikings will come back next year and they'll be refreshed and they'll take advantage of a weak schedule and they'll, JJ McCarthy looks good? Or is this like a beginning of the end scenario like it was for Mike Zimmer where things start to fall apart? The coach and the general manager aren't talking. Like, I think the general manager is a big conversation out of this because he chose a lot of the players on this team. And I mean, JJ McCarthy was a Kevin O'Connell decision, but you look at some of the decisions they made this past offseason and really going back in the draft, 2022 draft, 2023 draft outside of Jordan Addison, even 2024 draft. Dallas Turner did show up yesterday. I do want to point that out. Had a very good game. And in the same vein as McCarthy, what you got next 7 games? Adam also made this point about Turner, and I just want to kind of point this out. He mentioned that he might just be a better fit for that Jonathan Grenard role than he is the Andrew Van Ginkel role because Van Ginkel has to do so much as far as coverage, as far as, getting everything lined up. He's a jack of all trades type of dude, where Dallas Turner is, hey, get to the quarterback. Like, go try and say, and He had an almost sack, but I mean, he was generating pressure. He played very well in place of Bernard. It's just something to monitor coming forward because I think that's something we want to keep our eyes on when it comes to the 2024 draft. But overall, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Ryan Grigson, I know the win-loss record is good, but how much of that is Kevin O'Connell? And I'm not sitting here being like they should be fired, but again, we need to evaluate the future. Why did this happen? Why did the Vikings go from this Super Bowl contender that we thought they were, and they were a year ago, and now they're not with the same roster outside of the. Maybe it is just the difference between Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy for this team, but the Vikings had this in mind all along. This was a 3-year, 4-year plan, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, 4-year plan to put your starter quarterback of the future out there. And it's just been a wet fart. Not to get graphic, but I did have tacos for dinner, but that's beside the point. Like it's just been a dud. So I don't know. What happens now? Who shows up in the next 7 games? And is JJ McCarthy the guy to lead this team? Those are questions we're going to find out. And those are, do I want to beat the Packers on Sunday? Hell yeah, I want to. I want to win every game. The rest of if we win a game, that's a feather in McCarthy's hat. Like, hey, he led us to a win at Lambeau Field. But also, my energy level is just low because the team's energy level is low now. And I think that gets back to the culture. And it's 2 teams that were heading in opposite directions on Sunday. So that's all I have for you today. Again, solo show. Try to keep it simple, and I still went about 40 minutes. But before I get out of here, I want to make some shout outs here for all of the fine websites that I write for. Of course, you can find my work when it comes to the Vikings at zonecoverage.com. I also write for the Twins over there, and I also dabble in wild stuff, Minnesota Wild at Hockey Wilderness as well. You can check out the FanSided RBN network to keep up with everything that's going on in the NFC North. We got Dairyland Express for the Green Bay Packers. We got Windy City for Chicago Bears. And we got Detroit Jock City for the Lions. And I know this is a Viking show. This is the Viking Age. So I got to tell you about the vikingage.com. Lots of Justin Jefferson stuff in the aftermath of Sunday's game. His comments about JJ McCarthy, his chase for history against Randy Moss. All those things are up there right now. And Adam also took a victory lap over Sam Darnold's 4 interception performance against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday. So if you want to, I don't know, get some pleasure out of that, you can go ahead and do that. But of course, I tell you all of that because this is the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of the vikingage.com. I am Chris Schad at The Real Chris Schad. We do this every Tuesday and Friday morning right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We're in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. I am Chris Schad. Once again, 4 letters, 1 word. Skull.